Angel at Dusk, released by Akira Goya, known for Still Vampire and other doujin games like the edgy hentai horror Gashell. I didn't play too much of Still Vampire. I thought it was impressive, but it didn't catch my full attention for a full study. Angel at Dusk is pretty much like a spiritual successor to Still Vampire, and it expands on what it already has. So if you dig Still Vampire, you'll probably dig Angel at Dusk. Now, if you didn't like Still Vampire, you won't like Angel at Dusk at all. It's a very different kind of bullet hell shmup. There's an upgrade system, weapon upgrades, lots of ship variations to unlock, lots of ship attributes, lots of jargon, and lots of weird lore. It sounds like I'm describing an RPG. Original mode feels more RPG mechanics focused, especially with the Chronicle mode in it, which feels like a multi-path adventure that can get quite long. Arcade mode has several scenarios of different stages, enemies, and bosses you can experience. Difficulty modes and other sub-modes can be unlocked upon clearing the game and or with special conditions. As you can see, Angel at Dusk really wants you to grind their game to unlock more content. It doesn't feel forced at all. If anything, it sparks curiosity of what you may see or experience next. Lots of players have been praising the tutorial modes, and they are very well done. There are two different kinds of tutorial modes, one for learning Danmaku and one for learning the mechanics of the game. As much as I love the general Danmaku tutorial, and I recommend it strongly for new players, I have noticed you won't be using too much of what you learned because of the mechanics of the game contradict Danmaku fundamentals. For example, in game, there is a charge main shot and many other weapons that can delete and push around bullets in the game. Certain bullets have different durability, of course, but if you spam your charge shot, you don't have to dodge very much. But it doesn't make the game easy at certain times. If anything, the game can get very brutal at higher difficulties. But I do feel that it comes from some weird game design choices that can make certain situations feel unfair. For example, because of the game's wide screen scrolling horizontally, it seems that there are things still happening off screen. There have been times that enemies shoot off screen and I will run into bullets that are on their way towards a certain direction. There is also some extremely fast bullet pattern speeds that are almost impossible to react to, but if you pay attention, there is a visual cue that can help you prepare for those patterns. That's something that was mentioned in the Angel at Dusk tutorial. A lot of times, I feel like the losses in this game can range from how weak some of the ships are in arcade mode to how weak your weapons may be in Chronicle mode. So if you're having trouble playing in a certain difficulty mode or against a certain boss or a particular area in Chronicle mode, maybe switch your ship or weapons around a bit. Experiment and explore different weapons that have certain particular attributes or ships that have certain different statistics. The flow of the gameplay during runs has an interesting flow. Things start out calm, get hectic for a bit, then calm down again. Then on later stages and higher difficulties, things can get downright feral and unhinged. Just absolute madness. Thankfully, the game keeps its frame rate smooth, and the game only slows down after you receive a hit before you can recover. Oh yeah, the game has very good visibility layering, which means bullets are laid on top of everything in the game. If you want to play more for score, experiment around with breaking off pieces of certain enemies and bosses and grab as many items as you can, and take heed of the metal chaining system. The tutorial gives you a good basic understanding of that. I learned that certain ships, or angels as they call it, are better for score and others are better for survival. Speaking of score, the game has local leaderboards and online leaderboards for all the difficulty levels, missions, gameplay modes, and for the ships, or angels. Go ahead and see how high you can place on the leaderboards. There's only 255 slots. Sadly, the game doesn't save replays of your gameplay or has any save and load state technology. There isn't a practice/training mode either, but you can just use stage select with area select to grind out sections you're having trouble with. The graphics and visuals in Angel at Dusk are very impressive. You can see the immense amount of meticulous detail placed in the art, from the backgrounds to the bullet designs to the item drops to the angels or ship designs. Just look at the amount of pieces that are attached to them. They have wings, they have a tail that moves, claws, antenna, and more crazy detail to them. Plus, they look so different when you gain levels and evolve. They can grow quite large. The enemies of Angel at Dusk are quite impressive as well visually. A lot of them have weird limbs and appendages that slowly flare and hang off them. Many of them are very well animated and designed carefully. Every enemy in the game looks so unique and different to each other, which is rare in a lot of shmups that tend to reuse assets and alter them slightly to give an illusion of variety. I really dig how you can blow the enemies up into bits and they explode with blood. Very satisfying. I also really appreciate that you can remove enemy limbs and weaken their attacks. The bosses are very intricately designed as well. So much individuality and variety between them. The vibe of the game is very unique. Even though the art can be grotesque, it doesn't feel like a horror game. It doesn't feel evil or sinister. More mysterious than menacing. More artistic than abrasive. Just beautifully bizarre. There's almost a sort of a doleful feeling to Angel at Dusk. I can't really put my finger on it. It reminds me of going through an art gallery and stumbling upon an art piece that you can just feel the emotion coming from the canvas, and you wonder what else is stirring around in the artist's mind. Even the music of this game has a lot of heavy emotion too. It complements the atmosphere of the game so well. There are a few songs that feature flutes that sound like the musician was standing on top of a cliff, playing their heart out while the sun set. I appreciate how there are tracks that are more sparse and lonely feeling. Next to tracks that are more active and busy. There's also a song that has a frantic sounding piano that expresses pure anxiety and fear. The presentation of the game is rather solid, with similar font and menus to Still Vampire. I even like the tiny touches of how the menu music changes when you go to a different mode and visit the menus there. The main game screen has a very creative visual interface. It looks like the background of the sidebars is someone's insides that has solidified and turned into stone. The meters and icons on the left is surrounded by weird skeletal forms that look like vicious monsters that had their flesh, muscles, and organs removed. On the right side, you can see lots of information of what mode, mission, difficulty, and stage you're currently playing at. You can also see your experience level and experience rate. You can see information on your score totals with details on item pickups. Unfortunately, There isn't a mode to remove the sidebars and have a strictly tate vertical screen. You know, I wouldn't even mind, like, if they're gonna have these gadgets in this left and right sort of UI, like, make it like transparent or something to where I can like like see like what's, you know, out of my like view, you know what I'm saying? Kind of like Ghana Blade does this, and Gray's Counter GM does that as well. Like they have like stuff on the left and the right on the UI, but you know, you can still see some of the, you know, the game screen or whatever. The options you can change in Angel at Dusk are way more robust than in Steel Vampire. You can change the color of the font, menu windows, even the shadows and glow of the bullets. There is even a switch to change the bullets from biological forms to more symbolic and easier to see designs. You can even change if you want to see nipple details on the artwork and enemy models. You can also change the percentage of size the angels or ships grow when they gain experience. One interesting thing I've noticed in Angel at Dusk is how the developer, Akira Goya, names every single thing in this game. The weapon upgrades you gain in Chronicle mode, all the bosses you encounter, all the angels and their variants, all have very specific and damn near unpronounceable names. Bosses have a title and a name to them. Piod Gelug, Gino Ho Le Shupper, Jewel Gang Yu Ho. It almost seems like the developer has some sort of random name generator already in the game. It's very hard to remember the names of things in this game. I would have liked a glossary or appendix of all the terms and titles in this game. I do give the developer props on originality though. It's better than calling a weapon upgrade Flamethrower A or Spread Shot Hyper Beam thing, or calling a boss Soul Crusher or something like that. Good creativity that lends to the mysterious and bizarre nature of this game. And yes, you will definitely need to brush up and remind yourself of the jargon in this game, especially if you will be spending time grinding in original mode or unlocking angel variants in arcade mode. Thankfully, the tutorial helps so well with that. The story of this game, it just seems like the developer was on a bunch of psychedelics when coming up with it. It has a lot of superfluous exposition that is a bit difficult to understand because the game gives you bits and pieces after stages and after a run. Thankfully, in the game data, you can take some time to read over what you came across. There are a few things I wish Angel at Dusk had to increase its enjoyment for me. I can't stand the stages with the walls. It's so easy to get bounced around when colliding with enemies and to run into bullet patterns that are already active. Thankfully, those sections of those stages don't last long. I would have not have minded a mode that was more stripped down and more like a traditional arcade shmup, sort of like an expanded version of the final test in the tutorial mode. Angel at Dusk is definitely a game that will either turn you off or intrigue you because of its atmosphere and gameplay approach. It's definitely an unorthodox shmup. If you're looking for a hardcore, intense arcade shoot 'em up experience that will keep you on your toes throughout the time you start playing until you take a break, you won't find that in Angel at Dusk. It has very lenient gameplay mechanics that does have enough bite and challenge to keep things engaging. For myself, I tend to play Angel at Dusk after a long day when I feel like playing a shmup, but I don't want the intense challenge or have to use an enormous amount of focus and concentration when playing. If you dig Angel at Dusk, take some time and explore the catalog of Akira Goya's past works. I can't promise that you'll like or vibe with everything you see and experience, but it's a trip nonetheless.